Going to here at Nomad Mobile Maintenance. Now, this is going to be a little hard because I kept on grabbing stuff that I didn't need to do this repair, and it uses a lot of different extensions and sockets, and there's a few special tools that I don't currently have around me that I don't feel like grabbing, but this is every tool that you're going to need for the timing chain and water pump on most 3.5 Fords. This was for a 2012 Ford 3.5, but this is going to extend to most all of them. It's going to be very similar. You are going to need an 18 millimeter socket. You are going to need potentially a 6-inch extension so that you can rotate the crank easily. I used two 10-inch extensions so that I could rotate it from outside the vehicle. You are going to need the cam lock tool for the engine. There's a few different variations on that. Make sure you get the one that is specific to your vehicle. I'm not going to call it the part number because they had a few changes, not a whole bunch. I think there's four kits that you can get, and they just all vary slightly on the cam gap widths. You're going to need not a 24. You're going to need a 21. That was for the lug nut sockets on this vehicle. I believe some of them are going to be a 19, so that's just something to keep in mind. You're going to need a 15. You're going to need, this is another 18. This is what I used for doing the crank originally, and then I decided to get my 1/2-inch drive because it made life easier. I used a 1/2-inch to 3/8 adapter for that again, and for a few other things. On this vehicle, you should need a 13 on the front cover as well as a 13 on a few other bolts. Mine, someone had swapped some of the bolts out, and this is one of the other reasons that I had so much troubles, because someone had been in there and done a lot of bad things. This is also going to be for loosening the power steering pump on that vehicle so you can get into the front cover bolts on the back side. I used a variety of extensions, as you can see. That's going to be for getting into those weird spots that are just a little too hard to reach with a short, but a little too close for a deep. I did get away with a deep in a few spots. We had a deep 10, a deep 8. We're going to have that adapter to go for a 1/4 inch. And we had an 8 deep and an 8 1/4 inch drive. We had a 13, and this is the 12. Yeah, so this is a 12. You shouldn't need this. That shouldn't even be in there, but because someone saw it with some bolts, 10 millimeter short, another 10 millimeter short because I didn't feel like grabbing, a 10 millimeter 1/4 inch, a 15. Once again, this is going to be for the engine mount as well as the front engine mount to cover bolts. You're going to need a pair of pliers. This shouldn't be in there either. Belt removal and installer tools. The installer doesn't really work on this vehicle. This is the correct installer for this, so that's something to keep in mind. But it's hard to use. A zip tie is honestly an easier thing to use for this vehicle. And then also you're going to need, I don't think that 19 was needed. I think it was there for something else. And that should really be it. You're also going to need a pulley installer and a pulley remover for the front crank pulley. It's an awkward job to list off the tools, especially when a lot of the bolts that should be in the right spots were not. So that's why it's been kind of a hard one to do, is because it definitely was not what was expected. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Nomad Mobile Maintenance.